Welcome to Into the Unknown with Mike and John, Season 1, Episode 5. Coming up, Newsflash, unknown use of a mid-Maryland state park for the war effort. The boys really give 'em hell.
The war effort?
That's right, Johnny, the war effort. I'm Mike Duber.
And I'm John Fitzpatrick.
Boy, we started that with a lot of energy.
A lot of energy. Hope we have as much energy at the end as we do when we start.
We'll see. This one sounds like it's a little more low-key, right? Black Hell.
Well, I mean, is it? I don't know. Well, yeah.
It certainly has taken off in my mind.
So, Mike, I want to tell you, I don't know if I've ever told you this before, but back when I was in college, between 1990 and 1994, I saw black helicopters flying over the school.
Well, you were doing some drinking, weren't you? Oh, that's not what we're talking about.
That's not what we're talking about.
They were not pink helicopters.
They're not pink helicopter elephants flying around. No.
Okay, you're being serious.
I'm being serious, but let me be candid. Okay.
Yep.
This story's not really about the paranormal. And it's not really about a conspiracy theory. Although if we're going to talk black helicopters, we kind of need to talk about that. And in some ways, it's not even really about the black helicopters. They're sort of the entree to this. But black helicopter stories go back to the 1970s. They are definitely a part of the paranormal scene. The conspiracy trope in various fringe communities relating to high strangeness was only just getting started in the early 90s. And if you've been around, I'm sure you know what some of those theories are about how they're involved with the cattle mutilations or
I've not heard that connection.
Or they're involved in some conspiratorial UN business. Who knows? That's less paranormal. But yeah, there's a cattle mutilation aspect to this where they think that the black helicopters are some kind of projection of the UFO, a camouflage, if you will.
I've heard that the cattle mutilations they're all government and there's a purpose behind it, but I did not put the helicopters on it.
Yeah,
but I also didn't read a lot on it.
The black
helicopters. I'm sure Linda
helicopters.
Moulton Howe would have that knowledge.
She is the expert on that.
So
no, what I saw were real, honest to goodness military helicopters. I know this for a fact. I have no stories about cattle mutilations to go along with this, not even one.
And that's okay, John.
But if occult simply means hidden, then I think this story fits into the podcast. And I think, first season where we're trying to kind of stake out ground, this might be a sort of it's not really true crime. But there, we want to have overlap into some areas that are maybe not fully paranormal. I mean, we just did ghosts. Now we're swinging the pendulum in another direction. Okay.
Sure. So, I like this, John. Yeah. And I mean, it's in Maryland. It fits that criteria. But I also like it because this was your experience.
Yeah. And I think we
really
want
fascinating.
to start talking about...
And I've not heard this story.
I think we want to start talking about some of our personal experiences too. But yes, if occult simply is hidden, then this is definitely a story that fits because it's a glimpse into a hidden world that it's definitely existed, can be documented to exist in Maryland in the past, and to some degree happens today. So, but we probably won't talk too much about that part. Anyway, I went to school at Mount St. Mary's College. Now it's Mount St. Mary's University. I have no idea what the difference is. But it's in Thurmont, Maryland.
Some letters are different.
And Thurmont, Maryland is in the middle of the Catoctin Range, which is a sub-range of the Appalachian Mountains. In fact, I understand it's a sub-range. It's part of the Blue Ridge Mountains. Oh, yes. Although that's in dispute.
Right. Okay.
It's a mess. It's really pretty up there, though.
It is indeed.
It is pretty.
It is indeed. I used to ride my motorcycle up there. It's beautiful.
Back when you had a motorcycle. Imagine going to college there for 4 years. It was great. Anyway, I arrived for my freshman year in August 1990. And if you're old enough, you might remember. I'm sure you do. Some of our listeners might not.
Yeah.
That
memories from then.
That was the beginning of the Gulf War. And President George H.W. Bush, the first President Bush, was just beginning to build up troops in Saudi Arabia in response to the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait.
I remember that because do you remember Dan Laddie? Dan went off to that engagement.
Oh, did he?
And we remember
okay.
that.
I vaguely
that
remember
day.
the
We had
name.
a going away for him.
Yeah, I
haven't spoken to him for years.
We actually had a number of people who showed up to start the school year, and then they were in reserve units or guard units,
and off they went.
And we didn't see them again until the next year, basically. But that's a story for a different day. But yes, the other thing that was of topic of interest was, will they draft? Because, of course, when you're 18 and going off to college, the last thing you want to hear is you're about to be drafted and go off to fight in the desert. Anyway, President Bush was spending quite a lot of time with his advisors at the mountain retreat of Camp David, which is only a few miles and a couple of mountain peaks away from Mount St. Mary's. So when I say I saw military helicopters, I saw them overhead nearly every day. My assumption is simply that it was somehow easier or maybe more secure to supply Camp David by air rather than by road. All right, because the roads up there, they will narrow down. They're down to get to Camp David, so they could be easily
defended.
Defended if you fly it. If you fly it, you don't need to defend it. But that's the point.
It's Camp David. I mean, you could invent numerous reasons why they're flying people or material in there. Sure.
But the more important thing is, why were they flying over the college campus? You have to understand, the guys who fly and crew military helicopters are pretty much the same age as college kids. Maybe a little bit older if they're flying them themselves, but...
Are they hoping for bikini-clad girls who are sunning themselves on the roof?
Absolutely. And you know what else? They got them. Okay. Once it became known to the helicopter's crews that young ladies might be sunning themselves on the college quad and be willing to wave at them. Hi, flyboy. I'm sure the campus became a waypoint on official maps.
Oh my gosh, I almost said that word for word. I pulled that right out of my head. I did not pull that from your from words that you've written.
And when I say they were flying over and flying low enough to wave back and see them, I swear to you, I saw one fly so low it had to gain altitude to go over a 3-story building, over the science building of the quad. I know it is. It's, looking back, it's like, of course, and I know my daughter, who is of that age now, wouldn't think this is very woke, but it was a different time 30-ish years ago. And, let's face it, people are always going to be wired this way, especially, wartime. These guys didn't know where they'd be next. So it's okay. I understand. I just didn't need the competition at the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where do I get a helicopter?
Yeah, damn it. I could be cool. All right. The other thing you have to understand about helicopters is, while they might paint the Army and Marine helicopters olive green, and Air Force and Navy helicopters get painted gray, from a distance they all look black. They all look black. So when people say, I saw a black helicopter, that's no big deal. I mean, we got used to seeing...
Yeah, you make some good points there, because I think I know where you're going with that.
Yeah. Well, maybe. I don't know. I'm just saying, there's so many conspiratorial theories about black helicopters. If you see a helicopter in the distance, it's black. Like yesterday, I was out in Westminster, and I looked up twice and saw like regular civilian helicopters flying around. And until they got real close, they looked black.
Yeah,
they looked like black helicopters.
Well, this is a running ground for a flight corridor for Maryland State Police. So
yeah,
they're coming through all the time,
and they're dark green and black.
They are extremely dark green. Yeah. It's effectively black, but they're banded on the on the one control plane.
Yeah. All right, so anyway, we got used to seeing them around. We got very comfortable with them. So comfortable, in fact, that when the Gulf War was over, which was basically, because it was quick, if you don't know that, it was like 100 days. It was over by the end of spring break of 91. We noticed the absence more than anything, because it got real quiet. Real quiet. Because they were very loud. But not really for long. Because shortly after the conclusion of the Gulf War, some other ancient history here, Yugoslavia, of all places, decided to split apart. Now, little background there. Yugoslavia had been a mishmash of communist and previously fascist-controlled constituent states since just before World War II. It was a very modern nation, a very modern construct of a nation. Historically, these states never got along for a variety of cultural reasons, religious reasons, linguistic reasons. The map, if you look at Europe now, it's got Serbia, it's got Bosnia-Herzegovina, it's got Kosovo on it. It's got a number of, those are the states that used to be Yugoslavia. They have been contested since the 1400s. So
when you say ancient history, you're not kidding.
Yeah, they were the only reason they were together was because there was an iron fist in control, some totalitarian regime in control until the 90s. And then in the breakup, there was a civil war because all the old rivalries came together, and you can't have a civil war in the underbelly of Europe, particularly in the 20th century, because World War I started because somebody decided to assassinate the Emperor of Austria-Hungary in Sarajevo, which was basically Yugoslavia. So this was a big concern. Instability in Europe becomes a foreign policy crisis for the U.S., and that's about the time, coincidentally, shocking, the helicopters came back. But this time they were not flirting with the student body. They were not simply ferrying people.
Yeah, like pizzas
to Camp David.
Soda.
Something else was going on.
Huh.
Okay. So at this point, and we're talking 1992, 93, I was an upperclassman. I had a car on campus, and it was not unusual for us, my group, in the middle of the night, to get into the cars, caravan north over the Mason-Dixon line, and make a late-night run to the Lincoln Diner in Gettysburg. And I want to put a pin not for this episode, but for Gettysburg and the Lincoln Diner for another episode, because they have some interesting things going on there, too.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Anyway.
It's been a while since I've been there.
Oh, we loved the Lincoln Diner. I miss it so much, but those were the days. Who doesn't miss that?
It's still there, right?
I believe it is. Yeah, I just don't go anymore.
Right.
I'm too old for that, and it's too far away.
Well, still food.
Anyway. This is why we were out and about, and it was on these trips we really noticed some odd things about the helicopters that were back. First, it seemed like there were a lot more of them at night.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
And even more weird, sometimes we would watch them fly around in circles and then turn off their navigation lights. Now, that's a big deal. Okay.
So question. When did FLIR and the technology to fly at night, when did that come about?
That's all available in the 80s.
In the 80s.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah. So yeah, and 92, 93, 94.
Okay.
If you want to take a look at the kind of technology that was available, the kind of skill that was available in the pilots, go watch Black Hawk Down, because those, I think, were the same type of people that were flying overhead, if not the exact same people.
Yeah.
Yes, they had the technology to fly low. They had the technology to fly low at night. They had the night vision goggles. Is it the same standard we have today? Oh, absolutely not.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure the technology has taken off.
It's like Model T Fords and driving now with all the assists. You've got to tell you don't get into the next lane over. It's completely different, and it's just in that short time period. But that's why they have to train. Because it's the training and skill part of the equation that you're still relying on more so than the technology. But the technology is there to allow that. So it's still kind of shocking. They'll look up and go, oh, where did all the helicopters go? They didn't fly away. We could watch the lights blink out. They were clearly turning them off.
Right.
Like I said, that's a big no-no. Because it's obvious. A dark aircraft is a hazard to other air traffic.
Right.
And you don't fly in formation without navigation lights because you need to be able to see the other aircraft in your formation. Mm-hmm. And clearly, like I said, there were a lot of helicopters up there.
Do you think they're clearing this with the NSB?
I'm sure they are, yeah. But
you think so?
Because typically the only time you're allowed to do this is when you're operational or when you're training to be operational. Mm-hmm. So why would they be training in the Catoctins? That's really the question.
Right.
All right. And that's where the history of the Catoctin Mountains can help us understand what was likely happening. Okay? So, way back when, the Office of Strategic Services, or the OSS, was the World War II precursor to both the Central Intelligence Agency, the infamous CIA, and the Military Special Operations Forces. Mm-hmm. All the big names we got today. That was their job back then. OSS was tasked with training spies, special forces, and saboteurs, most of whom would go to work in Europe against the Nazis. Mm-hmm. And they, when they stood up in 1942, they started looking around for federal land they could use for training. And there was a desire to keep it near Washington, D.C., for a variety of reasons. And they needed something that would be suitable to conduct military-type training, in particular, something that might approximate the environments that they would be used in, which they anticipated to be mostly Europe. It's not quite what ended up happening, but we'll get to that. Mm-hmm. So remember how I said the presidential retreat of Camp David is not far from Mount St. Mary's?
Right.
So the original Camp David was part of the Catoctin Recreational Demonstration Area, or RDA, which was part of the National Park Service. It was some 10,000 acres of mountain woodland administered by the Department of the Interior through the National Park Service. It was not a national park. It was just a recreation area that was designated for use by government employees. The idea was that the Washington, D.C. federal employees would be able to go up and rent a cabin in the woods
gotcha.
on federal land, and they'd be able to do it cheap.
Okay.
That area is still in existence today. It's now called Catoctin Mountain Park. Mm-hmm. Okay, and it is a national park.
Yep, well traveled.
Yep. Okay, so during the war, however, most of the Catoctin RDA was turned over to the OSS, and it was designated Area B. Mm-hmm. And Area B was used for the special operations training, all the cool stuff. Mm-hmm. All right. At the same time, the land that's now occupied by Camp David was turned into a presidential mountain retreat, which President Roosevelt, during the war, called Shangri-La. Because
of course,
it's up in the mountains,
right.
It's a paradise,
yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
You get away from it all there. One of the other large training sites still in the Catoctins was Camp Ritchie, which is northwest of Mount St. Mary's, and it remained a working Army installation until it was finally closed in 1998. And in fact, it was rumored through the 90s that that Fort Ritchie at that point was the location of the so-called underground Pentagon.
Oh, interesting. I went through there not that long ago, maybe a year ago. Past, there's an overlook.
It's
right
still
on the outside, and Camp Ritchie's right there.
Yeah, it's still there.
Yeah, well, they've done a lot to preserve it. There's a lot of unique buildings there.
Yes,
that have just stood the test of time. So there's a good bit of history to go see at Camp Ritchie.
Yeah, I'm not sure quite what's being done with it. They've tried to turn it into a couple of different things, like a little community or multi-use community.
There's a website, and it looked mostly historical. I would have to go back and look at it. I looked at it very recently. I'd like to go and look at different trailheads to go and explore, and I always end up out there a lot. And Camp Ritchie is, I'll eventually stop there. But there's a website. It's a lot of information out there.
If they've got something up and running, I'd be curious to go look at the history stuff.
It looked like they opened it up for people to go in and see the buildings.
I knew that was part of the plan with any of the community plans options, but I hadn't heard quite what had been done with it. Anyway, all these sites were used during World War II to train the personnel of the Office of Strategic Services and other military intelligence units. Camp Ritchie was home specifically to something called the Military Intelligence Training Center, or MITC, which trained nearly 20,000 military intelligence soldiers who came to be known as the Ritchie Boys. And they're an interesting bunch. Yep. This is an interesting little bit of Maryland history, too. So many of these men, and there were also a few women involved in the Ritchie Boys, already had fluency in European languages. In fact, many of them were immigrants or second generation, so they spoke the languages at home. And they were trained specifically for frontline interrogation, battlefield intelligence, counterintelligence, and other military intelligence investigative work. And notably, some 2,200 of them were Jewish, and they were very much refugees from Germany and Austria and looking to get back into that fight. And at the end of the war in Europe, many of these men went on to help staff the prosecutorial work that was done at the Nuremberg trials, in case you were afraid I was not going to drop a legal reference into all this. Okay,
but I expected it. I was just waiting to be surprised.
Well, I think that's the only one.
I brought along some tax records. Maybe you can read them for me.
Oh, so exciting. Property deeds.
Yes, land bequeathments.
Yeah. Okay, but don't let that fool you. While this does make it sound like the OSS and military intelligence folks were thinkers, it was often said that the ideal candidate for OSS duty was a PhD who could win a bar fight. And for that, I definitely want you to think Indiana Jones.
Yes.
Who we do learn in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and Dial of Destiny. I know the two lesser efforts, but we learn and see he was an OSS officer. Because in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, they drop the fact that he was promoted all the way up to colonel in the OSS, and they say in the OSS. And then you actually see it in the opening bit in Dial of Destiny. He's on a train. He's on a mission to collect a MacGuffin.
Actually,
if you haven't seen it.
I saw Dial of Destiny. I did. I don't remember the OSS references. I'll have to go back and look for those.
Yeah.
But I will say, while we're on Indiana Jones, the best rendition of a Indiana Jones story is currently a game.
Yes.
That was released.
I have not. I haven't played it.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
What's
it? Circle. Something?
The Great Circle.
Great Circle.
And
yes,
it's a sound story, and it's got a voice actor that sounds just like Indiana Jones.
Just
the
like
actor Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
And no, it's wonderful. So I thought I would mention that. Since you were so disappointed by those movies, I thought I would steer you towards the game, which was very good. Excellent.
I've rewatched the original trilogy not all that long ago, and they stand up so well. Raiders of the Lost Ark is a damn near perfect film.
That's wonderful. Yep.
And you can easily see in that movie that he's recruited by military intelligence. It's 36 in that movie. Yes, it's 1936. So it's not the OSS. They aren't in place yet. They don't get created until World War II.
Right. But
he's recruited by military intelligence to go off. I think they say Army intelligence, in fact, specifically, because that's the way it was set up back then.
Because for those that may not know, I mean the seeking of those artifacts by the Nazis that's history.
Yeah,
that was not invented for the movie.
No,
and some may know that. Most of our listeners would probably be aware of that.
True, and there's probably more made of that than is healthy in some ways, but it is true. And I think it was Himmler really that was more interested in trying to do that, because he was interested in trying. Himmler was the guy who was in charge of the SS, the Schutzstaffel, and he was interested in turning that after the war into more of an elite proving ground cult, even with true religious overtones,
right,
so that they could continue the 1,000-year Reich. And part of it, the reason he was interested in artifacts, was that if he could gather them, he really was interested in occult power and all that stuff.
Well, and it also has amazing symbolic power as well.
Yes.
But if we talk about occult, wow.
Yeah. So yeah, but Indiana Jones is definitely the mental image you want. Somebody who's really smart.
They
really
also
brave.
drained the prisons. They looked for intelligent criminals.
Well, somebody had to teach him how to pick locks.
That's what I'm talking about, right?
How to get into a safe.
Yeah.
Yes, you're not wrong.
You're
not wrong. But I digress.
Well, we said we would.
Yeah, and I asked you to, so that's okay. But that's
jumped in the copter and I took off.
Dun, dun, dun. That's the Indiana
Turned the
Jones
running
portion.
lights off.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, so the Catoctin recreational area was turned over to OSS by the National Park Service, and immediately they started building obstacle courses and et cetera, inside Area B. The first one was along some place called Owens Creek, and part of the obstacle course was a wire traverse over the actual creek. And for that, think old movies, trainees with full packs would get onto a taut wire a few feet over the creek, and they'd hold onto a rope that was running parallel above them as they inched across the wire. And if you think that sounds easy, it's not. And the whole point of the exercise was to induce some stress. So they were being yelled at and things were being flung at them, and they were timed, and they had to do it faster than they did it before, all those kinds of things. So more than a few trainees ended up in the creek below. Another obstacle course in the same area included the added thrill of small explosives. They're supposed to simulate ambushes. And it was, of course, imaginatively dubbed the Demolition Trail. Despite the danger that sounds like, there was only one reported injury. Future CIA Director Bill Casey, who was hit by debris that was thrown by a blast and broke his jaw.
Oh, well, wow. So these were not small. That's pretty.
Yeah,
that's pretty significant.
Well,
to get hit by debris that breaks your jaw.
Well,
these demolition pieces, or the sizes, are probably pretty big.
Pretty big, yeah. Well,
okay.
I'm gonna drop my first reference to my instructor, who says there's no safe way to do dangerous things. Okay. Anyway, we'll move on. Trainees learned sabotage and demolition techniques with all kinds of explosives, including the newest plastic explosives, and how to make them themselves in some cases. But learning how to make something go boom is only part of the equation. You need to know how to do it correctly in the right place, right time. So there were various techniques to destroy or disable railroad track, train engines, train cars, bridges, tunnels, dams, radio towers, factories. All that had to be taught, because you use different types of explosives. Place them
you
differently.
Have a couple of shots, and they better be good.
Yeah,
because you just went to all the trouble to sneak the hell in there.
Yeah, you have to know how much to use.
Blow up the cantina.
Right. You want to. In some cases, you want to destroy the
key piece,
but leave the thing next to it standing, because you might need that later, type stuff. So that was important, and they had to be trained to do that so they could be dropped behind enemy lines, and not only do it themselves but teach it to the resistance fighters that were in Europe. So it also shouldn't come as a surprise that training was provided in hand-to-hand combat and knife fighting. And here, the OSS cribbed liberally from the British, who'd already been at this for a while. And the OSS brought over the head instructor, Major William Fairbairn, from the British Special Operations Executive. And he was supposed to help build the OSS curriculum and train the trainers. There's a term we hear sometimes. Who was William Fairbairn? He's obviously, since he's not paranormal, we're probably never going to do a whole episode on him. But trust me, there's a lot that could be said about this guy. He was a fascinating.
Is he
guy.
Haunting anywhere that we know of? Maybe one of these.
A Scottish retreat somewhere.
Is the Demolition Trail a haunted trail during Halloween?
I'm going to have to
check. You can go over there and get your jaw broken by Fairbairn. I'm
going to have to check, because all the similar training in the UK was done up in the Scottish Highlands. So, what better place to haunt? I may go haunt the Scottish Highlands myself when it's my time.
I think we just go and see what happens. That sounds fantastic.
I actually went to the Commando Memorial in the Highlands on my last visit.
You?
Yeah, so beautiful. God, I was saying the Catoctins are beautiful. They got nothing on the Highlands.
Bet.
Anyway,
I've seen
okay,
pictures.
so-
well, I'm going to pin your story about Nessie too, or you were just amusing me.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. All right, so Fairbairn. Fairbairn was, where did he get his bona fides to be training anybody? So he was a former head of the Shanghai Riot Squad.
Oh, those guys.
All right, so we're talking deep in the era of imperialism and colonialism. Fairbairn started out as a Royal Marine. He managed to end his enlistment in China and in Shanghai, which was under the protection, so to speak, of the British, and became a policeman. It was notorious for being one of the roughest, toughest port cities in the world.
Yeah, we would get shanghaied.
Yes, that's where the term comes from.
That sure does.
So you can imagine police duty was rough and tumble. And when I say he was the head of the riot squad, it was really more of a prototype SWAT team or high-risk warrant unit. They would be sent in to do close combat with gangsters and other international thugs. Yeah. So he took his job very seriously, and while in Asia and as part of this team, he learned a variety of martial arts, Chinese, Japanese.
Sort of the birthplace of martial arts.
Yeah, and he decided to boil them all down to an essential form that he taught to the riot squad. So when the war started, he and a buddy named Sykes volunteered to teach what he called gutter fighting to, like I said, the British Special Operations Executive, or SOE, and the newly formed British Commandos, which were Army and Marine
Who dares
troops.
wins?
That's the SAS.
It's the SAS?
That's the
I
SAS.
got
But
my
they
commandos mixed up.
Yeah, but they come out of the Commandos. That's just a little bit later. So yes, he taught them too.
Gotcha.
Okay. His principle for fighting was very simple: kill or be killed. Very direct.
Yeah.
Fairbairn was also the designer of the famous Commando dagger with Sykes, his partner. And that's a distinctive stiletto issued to every British Commando and Special Forces soldier, even to this day. It's part of their rite of passage.
Extremely useful. I mean, why wouldn't it be? It's sometimes you've got to get in close.
Yeah. It
still is the case.
It's a classic design. I don't know that I want to go down this road too far, but I do want to. I do want to say it has its limitations, but it's very good at what it does well. It's like Wolverine. It's the best there is at what it does, and what it does is not very nice. Yeah. Anyway, Fairbairn. He's a slim, small man, wears glasses, and he's in his 50s. And Fairbairn often introduced himself to new classes by giving the largest man in the class one of those daggers and saying, "Come at me, bro." Or the equivalent in the 1940s speak from an Englishman, and you can imagine.
Yeah, he said, "Come at me, bro."
You can imagine how
that right? It sounded
how
right.
that went too. All right, they're looking at this guy like, who? He's old. And remember,
I heard him. Isn't he cute?
Isn't he cute? He looks like a little
accent.
And I'll draw. I'm going to mention the videos later, or films really later, but you can see what Fairbairn looked like. So once Fairbairn returned to the UK, the combatives training was turned over to his American protege, Rex Applegate, who's also visible in the films. Rex Applegate had a cadre of capable instructors that also learned at Fairbairn's feet. They continued to improve. They used the lessons learned. They would often interview people who came back from missions who said, "Hey, I used this." They said, "Oh, what did you use, and how did you use it? And tell us more. What worked, what didn't work?" Interestingly enough, one of Applegate's assistant instructors was a professional wrestler named Man Mountain Dean. A little interesting fact, probably not surprising when you think about it, but there were a number of, since most men, not all, but most men who were physically capable went into the service, professional wrestlers, boxers, those types, often ended up in positions where they were supposed to train and teach their skills.
The pugilists.
Yeah, and Jack Dempsey, wrestlers. That's the name I was searching for. Jack Dempsey ended up in the Coast Guard, and he taught boxing, and wrestling. He was actually a very capable catch wrestler, which is not pro wrestling. Looks more like
legitimate wrestling.
Yeah, it's legitimate wrestling. It's also not high school wrestling. It looks a bit more like, if you watch MMA now, Brazilian jiu-jitsu type technique.
So the Grace Hoisey kind of grabs and gi grabs and chokes. And
I mean, they didn't fight in gis, but
that's my
all that stuff, the chokes, the throws, the wrestling around, not just the pinning, but a submission type hold, those kinds of things. So Jack Dempsey was very
well. I mean, and you're sneaking around. You need to be quiet in many cases, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you're going loud, but you're also potentially having to take somebody out very quietly.
Yeah. Oh, especially these guys. Or they might get cornered in a position and trying to escape, have to kill somebody. And a lot of the training looks like that, too. Applegate described his approach to combatives training as do unto others as they would do unto you, but do it first. Okay.
Well, it just sounds like good advice.
So Applegate didn't just do the hand-to-hand stuff. He was also involved in the firearms training. And initially, the trainees underwent basic firearms training at Camp Ritchie. But later, a firing range was constructed at Area B in the Catoctin Park area. And here, the trainees learned to operate both Allied weapons. Obviously, we would issue them a gun, and they also learned how to use Axis weapons.
Of course,
German weapons.
This is what you're going to find in theater,
right?
You may as well get used to it.
And handle grenades. They learned some special methods for using firearms that were different from the main body of the military. For example, and they're very innovative for the time. I mean, we wouldn't think of them as anything too outrageous today, but. The pistol range used pop-up targets with silhouettes of actual enemy soldiers.
Yeah, something you're actually going to see.
Right. And they learned a quick firing method for close quarters shooting with somewhat obvious name of instinctive shooting or point shooting or point and shoot. And this was something where they learned how, basically, if you can point your finger at something,
right,
you can hit it. And
well, that's what they tell you, when I went through handgun training and back in the day, we'll talk about that later. Yeah. But, you were meant to draw your weapon and thrust the barrel into your target.
Yeah.
It's a mind, body, muscle memory technique.
And
because obviously this is the root of all that.
Yeah. I'm also not entirely sure about it is the root. And they have firearms training fashion comes and goes, but I don't want to get into all that per se.
You don't want to talk about the officer that shot 3 perps by shooting, reholstering his weapon, shooting, reholstering his weapon. Oh, you know who that was? Oh, I can't. Okay, I'll tell you that story later. That's a good one.
No, but
the
idea of point shooting was that you're probably going to get into a fight at pretty close range. So you probably, if you can point at something, you should be able to hit it. You're not looking to shoot at somebody across a football field with a pistol.
Right.
Especially these guys. The whole idea was that they're going to be confronted right away. Either they will be doing the confronting or they will have been confronted by a bad guy. And to that end, one of the most innovative training methods that they devised was the House of Horrors. And the House of Horrors was very much like the similarly titled carnival attraction, in that a trainee would be given
go in with your girlfriend, and you get her really scared.
Really scared.
So she hugs you.
And then you put your arm around her.
And you lead her. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No. Is that how that was supposed to work?
No, I think I'm talking
you would
about
know better
the tunnel
than me.
Of love.
Okay.
Okay. No. I could tell you now, it was not in my list of things that I did by taking a girlfriend into a haunted house.
All right, no. So the House of Horrors in OSS World War II terms, the trainee would be given a .45 automatic pistol and sent into a darkened structure with an instructor following closely behind to monitor his progress and ability. The floors were unstable and rickety. A spooky soundtrack was provided, in that there were German-speaking voices, shouts, commands, alarms going off, women screaming and crying. In fact, I'll be honest, that's that's the nice version that often shows up in the histories. Supposedly, it was a simulated rape.
Yeah,
something that would really unnerve somebody who did not have any expectation going into this structure.
I would throw out there, and just hearing that, I know we've talked about this a couple times, but hearing it, an idea popped up to me that you must resist going to help. You have a mission. I mean, your mission is to do X, Y, and Z. You have to resist the desire to save this human female from that terror.
At a minimum, it is intended specifically to provoke an emotional response.
Right. It's a terrifying and unjarring.
And you have to work through it.
Right. You got to work past it.
And that kind of...
And it can't become your new target.
Right. That kind of scenario training is still conducted today. And it's still considered somewhat innovative. I'm not sure why, but...
Well, it mimics the reality of you're there for a mission. And what... We're going to train you against things that might knock you off of mission quite easily.
Yeah. So the other thing is they clearly have targets. So along the path, the trainee would encounter a variety of different targets. They didn't all look alike. Some of them were even, and again, innovative, three-dimensional targets rigged to look like German soldiers. Like they might be wearing captured German uniforms or painted to look that way. And there's a piece I'd like you to read here that is the testimony of a soldier who actually went through this training.
Each of us, over a period of a couple of days, would be awakened in the middle of the night and hauled off to carry out a special mission. When it came my time, I was told that there was a Nazi soldier holed up in a building and that it was my job to go in and kill him. I was given a .45 and 2 clips. The house I was sent into was a log house with long corridors and stairways. I wasn't sure whether there really was a Nazi soldier there or not. I kicked the door open with my gun at the ready. Paper targets with photographs of uniformed German soldiers jumped at me from every corner and every window and doorway. We had been taught to always fire 2 shots at the target. There must have been 6 targets because I got 2 bullets in each one. The last one was a dummy, sitting in a chair with a lighted cigarette in his hand. If you didn't shoot him, you failed the test. We'll be right back.
Thank you. Sure. Very dramatic. What do you think?
I'm known to be dramatic.
Could you have hacked that?
Could I have done that?
Yeah.
I think I would have been okay with it. It sounded like he got 2 clips, right? So
yeah,
he had enough ammunition to get the guy. But you got to get the guy. I think I'm not going to.
You probably had to reload on that last guy.
Yeah. Well, you got to do a tactical reload.
two shots into the guy.
Yeah, well.
And you've got 2 clips. So there's like seven rounds in the clip, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like 8 with.
Well, we're going to have 8, one in the chamber.
Yeah.
But if you got to shoot the guy, could I have done that? I do. I do think I could. I'm not telling you that it's easy. I don't think I would have enjoyed the soundtrack as we discussed it. But I think it sounds like some pretty effective training.
I'll just say that I haven't had to do that specifically.
Yeah.
It's intense.
Yeah.
It can get quite tense.
Yeah. Well, It reminds me of, the training that the soldiers that were the training for D-Day. And just in general, the use of pig carcasses, blood and guts and everything strewn on a battlefield, and the soldiers are meant to crawl, under barbed wire through the guts and everything, just to say, this is what you're going to see. And instead of a pig, it could be the guy that was there before you. So it's brutal.
Yeah. Okay.
Brutal.
So interestingly enough, despite the fact that this was all secret training in a secret location, much like we operate here out of our undisclosed location, there's actually quite a lot of training film available from the OSS and specifically in the Catoctins. And surprisingly also, it's quite high quality production because it was all filmed by the Hollywood director John Ford during his wartime service. And in fact, my favorite of the films is the House of Horrors video, because Ford actually switched out some of the last target dummies on the course for actors in German uniforms. So clearly the actor trainee is shooting blanks at them. So it's a little inaccurate in terms of a representation of what really went on in the shoot house. And it's not following the exact script, but it does convey exactly that tension and that reality that a trainee was supposed to be experiencing, simulated, feeling at
Well,
the
they
time.
said they put three-dimensional targets in there, and so a mannequin, is going to be real enough
in the dark.
If you're dark and you're trying not to be shot yourself.
Right. You can also watch Fairbairn and Applegate teach the chin jab, which is one of the basic blows, and the film looks a little goofy, to say the least. But
A little. I think the soundtrack for those clips you showed me were a little goofy, but they probably did the job. Yeah. From the the 40s.
Yeah.
Early 40s.
I assure you though that I have been taught the chin jab, and the course of instruction actually looks like that even today. The instructor says this is how it works, and then everybody around the room is miming that in the air, and a bunch of grown men awkwardly miming the smack of the palm heel into the imaginary chin of opponent. Does look pretty stupid until you pull out a target bag and let them actually hit the bag, and then it makes sense.
The palm strike to the chin was one that was familiar to me, but the one where he was using his thumb underneath of the jaw was not one. It wasn't discussed, but I did not see that one. I've seen other pressure points on the face, but not that one.
Yeah, that's a classic.
Maybe my memory's just not good enough.
Yeah.
But I
definitely
There's a good one right here below the nose.
Yeah,
an excellent one.
All that stuff in the training I've experienced usually gets taught as a compliance technique against a resisting, but not hostile, not aggressively
That's how
violent
the pressure point
person.
on the bridge of the nose was told, or just under the nose. Was taught, and it was a way to get somebody to their feet.
So a lot of the cops and prison correctional officers that I've trained with have been taught that kind of material in order to make somebody move that doesn't want to get up out of the seat, because their resistance is, I'm just going to sit here,
right?
And they're not looking to get into a bigger fight, and it's just going to be uncomfortable and awkward and painful. And you can begin to manipulate the structure.
Yeah, it hurts like hell, because that's the one that they were okay with us experiencing. Yeah. And let me tell you,
I don't know why
you stand up. You don't think about it when that point is applied, that pressure is applied. You stand up. It works.
Well,
I don't know. I don't know what you were experiencing.
It works. So, yeah. This is where guilty knowledge comes in. Of course it worked, but I've seen people who
resist it.
Absolutely will just sit there and look at you and go, ain't going to work
that's
today.
When you move on to the next one.
That's when you start actually upping the
I can
violence
imagine
level.
people are different, but
it
generally works.
Yeah, if you had it done to you before, it's possible to resist, especially since it's just pain, and it's not going to create injury.
You have to know that ahead of time. And sit through it.
Yes. I agree. I know. That's why I'm not telling you you're wrong.
No, well, you're also applying it to somebody that's not trained in counter, techniques. You've got some goofball that decides he's going to go and protest somewhere. Yes. This is not somebody that is trained in counter techniques. So and it works.
That's actually the other interesting thing. You can buy, even today, a bunch of the books that Fairbairn wrote at the time, and then shortly after the war. One of them is gutter fighting, and
Yeah.
there's another one called Defendu, and when you flip through the books, they're of the 40s, they're of the 50s. The techniques they look a little ridiculous, and there's also stuff missing because they're very slim books. They're not like a modern martial arts book that has 100 pictures to take you through every piece of the technique and movement. The stuff does look goofy, and there's one technique that's particularly infamous in martial arts circles about using a matchbox, not a matchbook, but you remember the old match boxes that were phasing out when we were kids? You use the matchbox to strike somebody in the temple. Okay. And people look at this today and they go, what is he thinking?
Yeah.
Well, it's not about the matchbox, for starters. The idea, he's planting ideas. He's planting the idea of get a weapon. Don't just rely on yourself. So if you don't have a matchbox, what do you use? I don't know, a pencil?
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
well, now we're into John Wick territory.
A
but we're
pile
talking
of,
about
index cards.
coins, something. Right. Yeah, the idea is get something to solidify your hand and then hit them in the temple. Okay, and I think
the point is hit them in the temple.
Right.
Strike the temple.
Yeah,
You're gonna have an effect.
And he's giving you confidence along the way. So he's taught you a couple of things in a very short lesson. That yes, if you look at it and you're trying to be analytical about it, you're going, that looks goofy. But if you've been trained in
psychological set,
right. So the other thing that comes up with Fairbairn all the time is something called the timetable of death. I wasn't going to get into this. This is off script, but this is good stuff. We talked about the commando dagger. So he designed the dagger. Then he teaches you how to use it. As you mentioned, it's about stabbing people, and it is. He gave out a list of targets to the trainees, and associated with each target was, if you stab them here, they'll be dead in X number of seconds. And each target had a different value. Okay. It's baloney. I don't want to curse just because I'd like to keep this all PG, but we are moving.
Free.
We are moving into a graphic area here anyway, so I'm not sure why. It's been proven to be ridiculous, but that's not the point. The point is now the trainee has the knife, a list of targets. All the targets are valid. Like the surgeons who have looked at this, and I have the material about this if anyone's really curious. The surgeons who looked at it say, yeah, those are great targets. I just don't know about how this time works because everybody's different and how deep you stab and whether or not you do that, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Yeah.
Why would you publish this?
So he's giving you the knife, the target list, and the confidence. If you stab them there deep enough, it's going to kill them.
Right.
Okay. And that's all you need.
And moments matter, probably.
Right.
And you choose the target that is going to maximize your efficiency in moving on from this target.
Yes.
Right? Like 30 seconds, he's going to be gone.
Right.
Oh, okay. I can wait 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And I can get it deep enough, and sure.
Now, on the other hand, having been well trained in this material, it's a little bit of a bait and switch because the thing that was also likely to happen is the trainee stabs the sentry in the prescribed manner. We won't mention how or why, and now he's got somebody who's been mortally wounded.
Dead weight.
No, it's not dead weight yet. The person's mortally wounded, and you've got to deal with them for the next minute while they bleed out.
Right.
And meanwhile, you're going, I was told it was 30 seconds. What the hell?
That table was complete bullshit.
What the hell?
And that's how they figured out that he was lying.
No,
that's a great story. I like that.
There's a book.
Kids, will be a lesson to you.
Yeah. But
when you're using the timetable of death, don't trust the times.
But the training was valid. Like I said, that you've been given the tool, the technique, the target, and an expectation that it's going to be working. And it will work. It's just the timetable is ridiculous. So that's the kind of training they gave. And when you think about it, that is a good way to condense that training into like a 2-week block of here. We're going to take you out to the field and teach you hand-to-hand and knife fighting, and then send you out into the field where we know that given your job, you're likely to have to use this. And there are plenty of instances where these folks did use this stuff in this way. So it worked. Was it perfect? By no means. But you're not going to. You're not going to.
Well, you're not going to write a manual that says, stab him generally here, hope for the best, hold him because he's going to squirm and he might yell, so you might want to cover his mouth. You want to give, again, like you said, the confidence. Here's the procedure that you follow. And that's what I was joking about that story about the officer that encountered 3 people. And the reason he was holstering his weapon before he fired again is because that's how he was trained on the firing range, was that he would draw the weapon, fire very accurately, reholster it, draw it again, and fire. And they when they told him, did you know you did that? And he goes,
no, training scar.
No, I didn't even know I did that. Yeah. And he was flawless.
The other notorious story about that is there are variations on it. So it's apocryphal, but it's the story that's told to make the point among trainees. You disarm the gun. You're flawless in the disarm, and then the guy hands it back to the person who pulled the gun on him in the first place. And it's there's a variation about how this martial arts guy had a knife attack on the subway. He disarmed the knife and then handed the knife back because he'd always handed the knife back in training to his partner. In which case the knifist got so scared and shocked and realized this guy must be crazy that he ran away.
It's actually a genius move. It's like, I took it from you, I'm going to take it away from you again.
Don't do that. And then there are variations with handguns where the handgun gets taken away and then you hand it back. And usually in the handgun stories, I think they're apocryphal. They make their point though. Usually in the handgun stories, the bad guy now shoots you because the point is don't be that dumb.
Right. But it also is for the trainer. Create training that is real through the entire scenario. Train through the entire scenario. Like you are never, once you've disarmed him, throw the knife away, and the only person that picks it up it's not you. A third person goes and grabs it. I mean, it's just it's useful.
Or if you're taking the knife, use it on them. I didn't say that, did I? So I bring that up because there, if you watch that chin jab video, there's some really goofy, and I don't endorse disarming techniques. If you can get the gun away from them using those techniques, well, you're a better man than I am, person than I am, and definitely don't give it back to them because you will not get a second chance with those techniques. The training's innovative for its time. It's really much better thought out than a lot of people give it credit for. It is still the basis of some ongoing training today that's even provided to some high-speed folks. So it's not that it's not without criticism. It's that it had its point at that time. But I digress. We've digressed pretty far. All right, but maybe not, because the whole point of my digression, my intention was to provide this fascinating history about what happened in the Catoctins. But we've certainly moved pretty far from the black helicopter, so I think I should go back and finish that out.
Let's see what you do. You do a little swerve back.
I'm going to swerve back to the black helicopters. So they're more accurately blacked out helicopters, and they're flying over the Catoctins in 93 and 94, and that's where we left off. So I can't prove anything, and nobody's given me any insider knowledge, but if the Catoctins could be used for training once for Europe, there's no reason they couldn't be used again. The Catoctins are the northernmost part of the Blue Ridge Mountains chain within the full Appalachian Range, as I mentioned before. The mountain peaks in this area aren't especially high. The Catoctin Mountains top out just shy of about 1,900 feet. The Blue Ridge Mountains, which probably would also have been used by these helicopters, although I can't say for sure, they do rise to some higher elevations, but not near this location. They tend to be a little smaller. Meanwhile, the Balkan Mountains back in Yugoslavia, they're around 2,400 feet. So we're
close enough.
We're in the close enough range, and the type of terrain is similar. In that it's wooded, it's dotted with towns and small cities. I think it represents a fair simulation of the Balkans for training.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Now, you might say the U.S. didn't invade the Balkans. Well, it's kind of true. We did not invade the Balkans. They don't have any oil. But we did have to be ready to intervene in the 93-94 timeframe. And in fact, in 95, we conducted an air campaign to support the NATO objectives in the region. Mm-hmm. And during that air campaign, one guy, Captain Scott O'Grady, was shot down over Bosnia-Herzegovina. He spent 6 days on the run, evading capture, before the Marines saved him. And the Marines were helicoptered in. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Later in the 90s, after the Civil War sort of died down, there was a NATO mission that...
The Yugoslavian Civil War.
The Yugoslavian Civil War.
Yeah.
That's, okay. So after the Yugoslavian Civil War died down, there was a NATO and UN mission. There was a UN peacekeeping mission, but the NATO forces were actively trying to find accused war criminals. So they were mainly NATO Special Operations Forces. Does that sound familiar? Including some Americans, although that's never been really admitted to. Mm-hmm. But my instructor has stories. So
was he?
Having helicopter pilots and crews trained and ready to run around any of these kinds of missions was certainly a prudent move. So I think, things are matching up well. Mm-hmm. So then the other question is, do U.S. military helicopters actually train this way, buzzing the American landscape? And the answer is yes. Mm-hmm. Okay. If you do a quick YouTube search.
Of course it's on YouTube.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. Mm-hmm. We'll explain why in a second.
Yeah.
You can find the premier Special Operations helicopters, the U.S. Army's 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, or the Night Stalkers.
Oh, that was a good movie, too.
Yeah. Flying around U.S. cities, such as New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, and yes, even Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. There's a nice video showing them flying under the Brooklyn Bridge in formation. Mm-hmm. There's another video from 2019 that has blacked out helicopters flying in very close formation down a Los Angeles street. And when I say down the street, I mean, they're like,
it was like
dozens.
They could have stopped for a falafel.
Yeah. Yeah. They're in that canyon that's created by the buildings. And they're not necessarily high-rise buildings either. Mm-hmm. And then they'll land on the street next to trees, even in some cases, to pick up and drop off troops that are on a training exercise. Now, you might ask, why the heck is there video of this? Well, the reason you're able to see video of the Night Stalkers flying around these major American cities is because it all happened after 9/11, after 2001. Mm-hmm. See, you can't just buzz an American city anymore without causing a panic. So the government has to announce these kinds of training maneuvers well in advance, or they risk setting off a full-blown panic. And if you watch the videos, you'll see these are extremely realistic military maneuvers, and they have to be, because these are the top-notch guys, and really it is dangerous to conduct this kind of training. So, like I said before, there's no safe way to train dangerous things. Mm-hmm. So that's today. I don't believe back in 93, 94, such an announcement would have been necessary simply to train over the mountains of rural Maryland. Mm-hmm. So there you go. That's my encounter with the mysterious black helicopters. It might not be paranormal or conspiratorial, but I still think it's fascinating. Still think it shows that view into a hidden world. Mm-hmm. A hidden world.
Occult world.
An occult world. A world of the past, and to some degree a world of the present. And here's the best part. You can still visit many of these sites today. You can,
where John stood and looked overhead.
Right. You can go to Mount St. Mary's. You can go to Mount St. Mary's for sure. I don't know why you'd want to. I mean, other than to go to class, but I don't know.
I hear there are a lot of bikini babes over there sunning themselves on the top of buildings. They were on the quad?
They were on the quad.
So I don't have to have a helicopter.
No, you can just go to the quad. Although I don't know. I mean, I have a feeling that was a chicken and egg thing too. Oh, the helicopters are out.
they're like,
Okay.
yeah, I'm getting my degree. But on the other hand, a man in uniform. All right. Flies helicopters, does he? Ooh.
Yeah. So a lot of the land has been returned to the National Park Service. I mentioned that much of it is now back as the Catoctin Mountain Park. Obviously you can't go to Camp David. That's still closed to the public.
Shangri-La is closed to the public until further notice.
But you should be advised that if you do go visit Catoctin Mountain Park, while they do have some exhibits and artifacts relating to the OSS, there's not a whole lot of the infrastructure left standing. So you're not going to be able to go visit the demolition trail. You might be able to go to the trail. I don't know if it's marked as such.
The demolition trail?
There's not going to be any.
They took out all the explosives.
They took out all the explosives. But mostly you'll have the satisfaction of roaming around the same places that these brave men and some women walked.
Interesting.
So that's my story.
Thank you so much.
You got anything else? Any other questions?
I don't.
Do you want to know about the chin jab more?
The chin jab? No.
The brachial stun?
No.
That's a favorite of mine. You can use that edged hand
on.
move that you saw.
That's the good old karate chop.
Karate chop to the.
That's what he's talking about.
To the
folks.
brachial plexus.
We're showing you in your mind. Imagine Get Smart doing the karate chop. That's actually a thing.
That's a thing.
They
but
trained spies
not the way
to
they
do
do it on
right,
TV.
Not the way they did it. Yeah. No, I like this. I like this, John. It was an occult story. I like that. And remember, folks, occult doesn't necessarily mean cult.
No.
Or it doesn't, it's not always a negative connotation. Occult simply means hidden.
Hidden.
Yeah.
Hidden.
Yeah.
And I think it's, I think at this point in our season, I think a nice change. A little unexpected. And I think we need to stay unexpected, if nothing else.
I think we do. And, I think we might just head south on our next story.
Oh, where are we going
from
next?
The Catoctins. Well, I mean, I don't know, John. Where are we going?
Wait. Okay, so the next episode is Washington, D.C., isn't it?
Don't go flapping your gums,
No,
John.
wait. Is this the foundational incident?
I think it might be.
Is this the 1952 UFO flap?
I think it is.
Well, then where do we go?
Well, from there, we go back to the occult,
Okay.
of course. Yeah. It's written right there. And where I would like to take us next after the flap would be into an interesting book called The Kabbalion. And I will leave it at that. There's an interesting amount of occult knowledge within this book, and I think it's worth talking about. And I would call it paranormal. I think it can be extrapolated into the paranormal, and I think it fits foundational.
I think it fits into the umbrella. Yeah,
it does.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a good one. And then after that, I think it's a mystery. We're going to have to leave you guessing for the
finale,
for the eighth and final episode in our season. There's a lot to look forward to yet.
But we are going to think about what to put in the next season because we are having a blast.
We don't. That's right.
I don't really care if anybody's listening to us.
I think we're going to have some family and friends out there really enjoying this.
Yeah, both of them.
For a little while. And then we're going to have season 2. We're going to go through the tax records of... What?
The tax records.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's going to be a complete tax season. We're going to put it out like after January 1st.
Should we have maybe a few land deals, real property issues, real estate?
We did. I think we need another.
Okay.
We need another business story with a really good, long, legal battle. That'd be fun.
Okay.
And then
I'll see what I can do.
With a ghost.
With a ghost?
With a ghost involved. Yeah.
How about a demon?
Yeah, demon. We haven't covered demons. We haven't covered
not really.
We haven't. I'm looking at the list.
I mean,
I'm glad we wrote it on the wall.
We kind of brought them up in the Ouija board.
Yeah, but we didn't spend any time.
No.
And we got to give some time to the demons.
Yeah.
Because it's really paranormal.
That's where the big money is.
I hear that. Especially, if you exercising them, as a health coach, you get them into the gym and you exercise them.
Yep.
And,
and then they feel better and they're happier.
Yeah.
And then they live a more fulfilling
Tim
life.
Curry in Legend.
Oh, he was magnificent, man, wasn't he?
Well, they did, man. He had to be built to carry those horns around.
He was a horny devil. Yeah.
Oh boy. So anyway, Good work, John. I think your helicopter story was fun, and I enjoyed hearing about another one of your college stories. It had bikini babes, it had blacked out helicopters, it had Fairburn
But
killing
respectfully so.
folks. It did.
Okay.
It did. It had it did. It had young men, lusting after young women. That's the way of the world. All right, that does it for us. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you on the upcoming episodes. We laid out some of it. Is it going to be what we actually do? Well, we'll just have to wait and find out. Until then, we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye. That was a helicopter, in case you were wondering what that was.
I was wondering if I could like.
We're going to leave that in. We're totally leaving that in.
I think you should leave this part in because I'm wondering
again.
what I do for a helicopter.
Isn't that what? All right, what movie was that from? That was Full Metal. It was pretty much every Vietnam movie that had helicopters in it, but they were green. All right, we're saying goodbye again.
I'm
Bye.
gonna come in low out of the rising sun, about a half mile out. Gonna turn on the Wagner.
Dun, 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 dun. All right, we're saying goodbye this time. For real. See y'all.